Hello. I'm going to go through the Imrad model and I'm just going to break it down into the constituent parts. This is the canonical standard structure for all science papers. Okay. Uh, Unless one of your professors tells you otherwise, I would really recommend learning this, practicing this, using this for all the papers you have left to write. So there's what's called the front matter and the abstract. Now this sits out here in front of the actual introduction, methods, research, etc. But the front matter and the abstract. Now the front matter is this on the front page in standard formatting. In standard formatting, you're going to have the title of your paper. This is usually center justified as well. Your name or the names of people on your research project. Now, usually in a research project, you are going to designate a lead author, okay? And then all the other authors that you write with. Sometimes what's funny in science papers, you'll see this very often because they'll basically do an experiment or research project, and then so they might be author X as the lead. Then they'll do a very similar style of paper based off of the results from this one, and they'll switch around the leads so that everybody gets a little bit of the credit. Okay, that's pretty standard. You'll see that pretty often, especially in the natural sciences. So the title of your paper, the names, etc., and then the affiliations. So if you are with a research institute, that would go there. If you're with a university, it would go there. If you're funded by whatever, so you would name all of those aspects. Okay, so that's standard for the title page on pretty much any paper. Now, titles, I want you to think of them as kind of almost like advertisements. Okay. This is the first thing the reader's really going to see in regards to your work. Okay. Now, in the sciences, they don't tend to use humor very often for whatever reasons. Okay. They want to be more, professional and objective and all this. In the social sciences, you will see more creative titles. But the kind of standard structure for titles is that you might be a little bit creative in the front part, okay? And then typically there'll be a colon, and then it will list 3 major things from the paper, okay? I'll show you one here. So here's a paper I wrote a couple years back. This was actually where I got the idea for that sociopathy paper. And this is, it's called Funny in the Bones, the neural interrelation of humor, irony, and metaphor. So you see, it's basically following that standard model. Okay. And Funny in the Bones, right? I just thought that was kind of a funnier title, more interesting perhaps. And you can see here the abstract. I'll talk about the abstract and keywords here in a moment. They had a different layout for their front material, so I just basically you have to follow the model that they tell you to. But Funny in the Bones, I think of it as like an advertisement. It's kind of hopefully a catchy title, kind of grabs attention, and so that's how I think of writing titles, because my background is in fact creative writing and poetry and fiction. Now the abstract. These are something that can be kind of tricky to write at first. The trick to the abstract is that you write it last. You do the paper, you do the research, you know what you're talking about, then go back and do the abstract. Some journals and some places might want to see an abstract before, right? If you're just doing a pitch, like if there's what's called a call for papers, a CFP, call for papers, they might say, submit an abstract on this topic. So you'd submit a 100 to 300 word sketch of what you want to do. Then you do the paper, and then you rewrite the abstract. Okay, they tend to be 1 to 300 words long. 300 is about the longest I've ever seen. 100 is about the shortest. If you really know the subject that you're talking about, you can get it done in 100 words. Some of my abstracts have been a little longer because I can sometimes be a little verbose. But the one thing I want you to see for science papers is that there is a structure to the abstract. It's basically a kind of mini Imrad model. Okay, so as I go through the Imrad model, think of each of these as constituting basically 1 to 2 sentences. And that means that will finish your abstract. Okay, so if you followed this model, your abstract, it kind of writes itself. Now you will have 2 small assignments that I've outlined already for the class regarding abstracts. What I want you to do is to take a paper that you've already written from another class, and then I want you to write a 1 to 300 page, or 1 to 300 word abstract, not pages, words, a 1 to 300 word abstract of an earlier paper. Okay, this is just practice. So if your paper was 5 to 10 pages long, and you're proud of the work that you did, the abstract should actually be pretty easy to write. But this is really good practice, because abstracts are very common if you go into academia, but also in the sciences in general. Okay, it really helps you to learn the Imrad model, and it helps you to learn summarizing. It helps you to be a little bit more analytical with your own writing. Okay. And then they typically ask for keywords. Now this is for indexing, okay? When your article is published or whatever, your research published, it goes into a database, okay? And so that database, when people go to do a search in the database, the keywords are what pings those searches. Okay, so if I go and I type in, here, I'll show you an example of this. So here are my keywords from my article: humor, irony, metaphor, neuroscience, theory of mind. So those are the 3 things: humor, irony, metaphor. Neuroscience, I made it kind of broad. Okay, even though I'm talking about very specific brain regions in here, neuroscience would maybe catch some of those, and then theory of mind kind of is a pretty broad category. And so you can see here, I have outline and methods. We'll talk about that here. So the introduction and methods in this paper kind of slam together so that you break them into sections based on what kind of paper you're writing. So I like to use humor, so it's why I kind of try to sneak what I think are funny titles into the subcategories and subheadings. A giraffe scientist walks into a bar. Why? I just thought it was funny. And then the conclusion here, and then the end notes, and then the research list, the reference list, works cited. So all of these are pretty standard in papers. You guys understand most of this probably from 119 and 120 and the papers you've written. But almost all papers are going to contain these things. So you can see here, where is it? Here's a research article. You can see here's the front stuff. Here's a title. Now this is clearly a very scientifically oriented paper. There's no humor, there's no wasted space. It's just what the paper's doing. You see it here, authors and affiliations. So you got a lot of authors, a lot of affiliations. Okay. Christian Krebs is the first author here, so is probably the lead author, and then all of the ones that follow. And here they actually break down the figures. Sometimes you'll have to add figures and data. This will be usually at the end of the paper, but in here, the way they've formatted this, it allows you to kind of move through each bit. Here is the abstract for this paper, and this lays out what their research questions were, what are the methods, what are the results, and then what are the further implications. Okay. So thus our data shows that pathogen-induced TRM17 cells have a previously unrecognized function in aggravating autoimmune disease. Ooh, okay, sounds like something that is really interesting that I don't want to read. Here, this is another research paper to show you this. This is from Springer. Oh, it's an open access paper published about 10 years ago. And you can see here, now here the affiliations are probably on these hyperlinks. So we have Mira Hahn and Christian Zmasik, published in BMC Bioinformatics. Here's the abstract, right? Now here this abstract, it's kind of broken down. Wait. Seems to me that there's no abstract given for this. Okay. That's kind of strange. Maybe it's here. Depending on the format of the journal, sometimes they change these things around. Okay, there's no abstract, but they give the background, the results, conclusion, etc. So, oh wait, I'm sorry. The abstract, as they're doing it here, is they're giving an abstract of each section. Okay, my bad. So here's the long background. There's implementation, research, results, and discussion, and all of this. And then conclusion. Animal mitochondrial DNA is a genetic marker in population evolutionary biology. Okay. Sometimes you'll see these. It's a DOI. It's basically a digital online index. Here, because we don't have access to this journal, we can only see the abstract. So that's why abstracts are actually pretty important, because sometimes it's the only thing people are going to be searching through as they're doing research. So you want your abstracts to be as clear and accurate as possible. That's why I said you're going to be writing those last. Okay, that's the same one. All right, so you see that almost all articles follow that model. Every journal article I've ever written has an abstract. You know, here's the abstract for this article. The proximate and distal causes for forgery as explained respectively by cultural and evolutionary factors. This one was about pedagogy. Anyway, so there's the DOI, there's the publication. I'm the only author, so yeah, so they're all going to have abstracts. They're all going to have front titles, names, affiliations, etc. So this is standard. This is what you're going to be doing, and that is the front stuff. In the next discussion, we will move to the introductory materials, okay? And then we'll talk about how those work. We'll talk about all the aspects therein, and then we'll move through the rest of this, and that will give us our model. So, thanks.